Morning guys, just coming into Montreal this morning. First day out of the shop. On my last trip, stopped to do an inspection, noticed all kinds of oil on the back of the truck, and after going underneath the truck found that the differential seal was leaking. Fortunately was able to make the delivery, make it back to Montreal, but we had to get it fixed. And I decided while I had the differential open anyway, I was going to change gear ratio. It's been playing in the back of my head for a while that I've been wanting to do it. I was kind of waiting till I had a little bit more money saved up to do it because what I had was working. But anyway, while they had the diff open, I figured I'd change a ratio. I'm really interested to see how it's going to work. Should pull a little bit better. We're doing a lot of 9-axle work with this truck, and the 373s, they were doing the job. I've been running them for the last year. But it's just a little bit hard on the clutch working in the yard if you got to start off on a little bit of an incline at a traffic light or stuff like that, or was a little bit quick to back up with steering dollies and Jeeps and stuff like that. So I'm hoping with this gear ratio, it's not really to pull better on the highway, although it should, but my main reason for doing it was to be geared a little bit lower for working in the yard, have to ride the clutch a little bit less. We left the yard this morning with this 988. We're grossing $165,000 going to Rouyn-Noranda. So it should be a good test for this new gear ratio. There's going to be a few pulls on here. Yeah, I know. While we were off last week, we got Fred in the shop also. Fred had his manhood removed. I don't think he really wants to talk about it. Big shout out to Clinique Vétérinaire Valmont for taking care of Fred. He survived. He's a survivor. Hey guys, we're just north of Gatineau, Quebec right now. We had to make a detour because there's a weight restricted bridge on the 117 going north, so we can't just go straight north with a load like this. At 165,000 pounds, of course, we're running overweight permits. They routed us west to Gatineau, then straight north. We're gonna come out in Grand Remous. Highway 5 ends here just north of Gatineau. We're going to make a left turn and continue on the old 105. And there's going to be some narrow sections right at the beginning here. There's some narrow guardrails and it's not really nice with a wide load. We're 12 feet wide with this loader. It's not crazy wide, but still with no escort, it's going to be a little bit tight in the guardrails. Stayed over a little bit to make the turn. Oh, we got the arrow anyway. I was worried we wouldn't get the arrow. And we're through the stressful part. The rest of this 105 is not too bad. It's still a 2-lane road, but it's not too bad. Just that first section with the guardrails and the rock face there, you don't really want to meet another wide load going the other way. Get around the corner and we'll see if there's time to let the traffic by before we lose the passing lane. Yeah, we'll get over and let a few by. We got a little bit of a shoulder here. Should be a nice morning fishing out there this morning. Nice little 988 on deck today. Big girl. Give you guys a look at how I've got it chained down. And I'll give you guys a little lesson in chaining. You see here, I went over the axle, but I went to the opposite side of the trailer. Instead of just going over the axle and straight to the D-ring to cross chain it. Now, we're in Canada here, so it doesn't really matter. But if we were in the US, technically this would count as a full chain because I went from one side of the trailer over the load to the opposite side of the trailer. However, if I went from one side of the trailer over the load and to this D-ring on the same side of the trailer, they would cut that chain in half. They would not count it as a full chain. The law in the US says the chain has to go from one side of the trailer over the load to the other side of the trailer to count as a full chain. Now, I'm not an engineer. If there's any engineers on here, maybe you can chime in to see if that really makes a difference in limiting the load, the weight limit of the chain. But that's what the law is, and if you get a trooper that really knows his stuff and really wants to hang you up on something, if you just go over the load back to the trailer without crossing over the trailer, they will cut that chain in half. In the US, only count it as half a chain. We just stopped at the truck stop there, made sure all the chains are tight because the scale was open up here. I mean, it's always good to stop and do it anyway, but that's why we chose to stop here. The scale's on the southbound side, but northbound traffic has to enter anyway. Motorcycle coming, I'll stop. You got your seatbelt on, Fred? And we got the light to continue. This is a messed up way to do it here. They're bringing the southbound traffic in at the same time as the northbound, so we got to take turns using the scale. And I'm going wide here because I can't see what's coming to the right, so I'll try to turn a little bit more perpendicular to the road so I can see what's coming. Welcome to Quebec. He had an extra lane there, so I wasn't too worried to push him over. Not me who builds these stupid scales. Just coming up to the Agnicoigo mine up here in Reveille. Told me to drive over the hill and somebody would be waiting on the side of the road to escort us into the mine site where we're going to be unloading this thing. We'll see. White pickup truck on the right, I believe, is our guy. I knew I didn't wash my truck for a reason. So we're getting here. First impressions of the ratio change. First day on the ratio change. Well, I specifically asked them to calibrate the speedometer after the ratio change, and they didn't do that. So there's about a 9-10 kilometer an hour difference between my speedometer and my GPS, which makes perfect sense because we went with about a 9% ratio change. So I'm gonna have to go back to the garage after the delivery, get them to finish their job. First impression with the ratio change itself, honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed. I was expecting a more significant change than that. I'm not saying the truck doesn't pull better, it might pull a little bit better, just not as significant as I was hoping. Where are you going, bud? Because there's a dump truck coming out. If I had been able to test the truck out before buying, I probably wouldn't have spent the money to do it. The difference isn't significant enough to warrant the amount of money I spent. I'm not going to say it's totally a waste. I mean, for the size of loads I'm doing, the weight of the loads, having the lower gears, I'm sure it's going to pay off in the long run, probably in longevity of the rest of the drivetrain. I'm sure it's easier on the truck. I just was hoping for a bigger difference. Again, I went with about 9%. We were at 370s and now we're at 410. And we'll engage our diff lock right now. This 988 without the bucket weighs about 50 tons and it's pretty average for the loads that I've been doing with this truck. I've been doing a lot of 9-axle work, so it's a good load to test it out. As for stuff like fuel mileage and stuff like that, well, let me play with it for a couple weeks and I'll get back to you guys on that. You never know, after a couple weeks maybe I'll fall in love with it. Just today, for what I used it for today, I didn't see a significant difference just from the guy holding the steering wheel. What do you think, wiener dog? We're there. Bonjour, bonjour.
Yeah, ça va bien?
Oui, vous?
Ben oui. On peut débarquer ça direct ici.
Direct ici, dans le chemin?
Ouais, n'importe où ici.
OK, je vais juste me mettre droite.